6:15 in the morning, and somebody is knocking on a door in Dallas that you have never seen before, because you have never lived in Dallas, because you have never lived under this name, because the name on the lease is one of 9 you have used across the last 4 years, and none of them were ever really yours. You are 22 years old. The knock is not a knock. It is a battering ram, and behind it are federal agents who have been building a file on you since a piece of software with your fingerprints on it. Not literal fingerprints, code fingerprints, the specific quirks in how you write a program that turn out to be as identifying as a signature, encrypted the networks of 1,500 businesses in a single afternoon and demanded $70 million to undo it. You did not build the software. You rented it. That distinction feels important to you right now, standing in a hallway with a rifle pointed at your chest, and it will feel considerably less important in about 18 months. In a federal courtroom, when a judge reads out a number in years that is longer than the number of years you have been alive. Here is how you got to this hallway. In 2021, a piece of ransomware called REvil hit a company most people had never heard of, Kaseya, a firm that helps other companies manage their computer networks remotely. And through that one company, REvil's software spread to as many as 1,500 businesses around the world in a single day. Before I take you through every level of how someone gets from kid messing around online to federal defendant facing over a decade in prison, I need to ask you one question. The people who actually wrote the ransomware and the people who used it to attack a specific company were often different people entirely, connected only by a rental agreement for criminal software. Why would criminals build a business model that requires trusting total strangers with weapons capable of demanding $100 million ransoms? Comment your answer below. Nobody starts as a criminal. You start as a 14-year-old with too much time, a laptop, and a forum where people 2 years older than you post tools they didn't build, explaining how to point them at things. You are what the industry calls a script kiddie, a threat actor who runs pre-built software without understanding what it's actually doing underneath. You don't write exploits, you download them. The distinction matters enormously to the people studying you, and means nothing at all to the systems you're breaking. Because a badly understood tool, used against an undefended target, works exactly as well as a well-understood one. You deface a small website, nothing valuable. A message left where it shouldn't be, signed with a handle instead of a name. It feels enormous. It is, statistically, one of the least sophisticated things a person can do online, and it is also, statistically, one of the most commonly prosecuted, because script kiddies get caught constantly. They don't yet know how to disappear. The skill required to break in is trivial. The skill required to vanish afterward is not. And at 14, you don't have either. You get lucky. Nobody notices this time. You will not always get lucky. The gray hat. You are 17 now, and the categories that felt simple at 14 have gotten complicated. Gray hat. Unauthorized access, but not malicious. You find a real vulnerability in a real company's system, not a defacement, an actual flaw that could let someone steal real data, and instead of exploiting it, you report it. Sometimes you get thanked. Sometimes you get threatened with prosecution for the unauthorized access itself, regardless of your intentions, because the law does not have a clean category for broke in but meant well, and you learn something important at 17 that most people never have to learn at all. Intent matters enormously to your conscience. It matters almost nothing to a criminal statute. The gap between the ethical hacker who gets hired and the criminal who gets indicted is sometimes nothing more than which side of a hiring conversation you happen to be standing on when someone official found out what you could do. You start to understand that the skill itself is neutral. What you do with it, and who decides to notice, is not. The black hat. 20 years old. Broke. Good at exactly one thing nobody in your actual life understands or values. Black hat. Unauthorized, criminal, motivated by profit or sabotage. This is where the forum kid becomes something the industry has an actual name for. You are not defacing websites for a signature anymore. You are looking for money, and the internet has an entire economy built for people exactly like you. Marketplaces, reputation systems, escrow services, all of it running on forums most people will never see. All of it functioning with a professionalism that would be almost admirable if it weren't entirely illegal. You take your first real job, small, a data theft, resold to someone else who will use it for something you don't ask about. You get paid in cryptocurrency that doesn't have your name on it, for a job that doesn't have your face on it, and for the first time the anonymity that felt like a shield at 14 starts to feel like something else. It starts to feel like the only thing keeping you alive in a normal sense. The moment it fails is the moment everything else fails with it. The affiliate. You don't build the weapon, you rent it. This is the ransomware-as-a-service model, and it is the specific innovation that turned ransomware from a niche crime into a global industry generating hundreds of millions of dollars. A core group builds sophisticated encryption malware and then leases access to affiliates, people like you, who handle the actual attacks in exchange for a cut of whatever ransom gets paid. You become an affiliate of a group called REvil. You didn't write a line of REvil's code, you deployed it. In August 2021, a real affiliate, a 22-year-old using the platform, was accused of using REvil against Kaseya, a company that manages remote networks for other companies. And through that single point of access, the ransomware reportedly reached as many as 1,500 businesses in one coordinated afternoon. $70 million demanded to unlock everything. You are, at this rank, both enormously powerful and almost entirely disposable. The people who built the software you're renting don't know your real name. They don't need to. If you get caught, their business model survives. Only you don't. This is not a partnership. This is a supply chain, and you are the part of it standing closest to the door when it gets kicked in. The organization. The group you're renting from is, by now, one of the most prolific ransomware operations on Earth. Between 2019 and 2021, REvil is linked to attacks that read like a list of institutions no single criminal group should be able to touch. Colonial Pipeline, the largest cyber attack on American oil infrastructure in history, which took the pipeline offline for days and produced fuel shortages up the entire East Coast. JBS, the world's largest meat processor, paying $11 million in ransom rather than risk a prolonged shutdown of the food supply chain. Kaseya, and through it, businesses that had never heard of REvil and never would have, until their files were locked and a countdown timer appeared on their screens. This is not you personally doing all of this. This is the organization you are now a documented part of, one affiliate among dozens, one name among many, contributing your piece to a machine that is, at this point, functioning at a scale that governments have started treating as a national security problem rather than an ordinary crime. You have never met most of the other people in this organization. You will never meet the people who eventually take it apart either. But they are already looking. The apt tier. There is a level above where you sit, and it belongs to a different category entirely. Advanced Persistent Threat. APT groups are not opportunistic. They are patient, well-funded, and frequently connected to nation-states, running operations that can last months or years inside a target's network before anyone notices they're there. Stuxnet, SolarWinds. These are not ransomware smash and grabs. These are operations built by people with government-level resources and government-level patience, targeting critical infrastructure, intelligence, and information warfare rather than a quick payday. You are not one of them. Almost nobody who starts on a forum at 14 ends up here. The resourcing gap between a ransomware affiliate and a state-sponsored operation is not a matter of individual skill. It is infrastructure, funding, and institutional protection that no freelance criminal, however talented, can build alone. This is the ceiling of the ladder for someone like you. Not because you couldn't get better, because the next level up isn't really a rank you climb. It's a resource tier you'd need a government behind you to reach. The collapse. January 2022. Russia's Federal Security Service, acting on information from the United States, arrests 14 people suspected of running and developing REvil's operations. They seize $600,000 in cash, 500,000 euros, 426 million rubles, computer equipment, cryptocurrency wallets, 20 cars purchased with the proceeds of the group's ransoms. It is, at the time, described as a rare moment of cooperation between two governments that agree on almost nothing else. A joint action against cybercrime that surprises analysts precisely because it happens at all. It does not last. Cooperation between the two countries stalls within months, as tensions over the war in Ukraine escalate, and the criminal proceedings that began with such unusual promise largely stop progressing. Some of the arrested men are eventually released, years later, having served out sentences connected to unrelated financial crimes rather than the ransomware charges that made global headlines. The organization that built and rented out the software you used does not simply vanish either. Within months, researchers watching the dark web notice something that should not be possible for a supposedly dismantled criminal enterprise. New REvil-branded malware, appearing in the wild, built by someone, perhaps a former member, perhaps an opportunist who inherited old source code, using a name too infamous to let die. The organization was never really the target. The individuals were. And the individuals scatter. The sentence. You are one of the individuals who does not scatter fast enough. Arrested in Poland in October, on an international warrant. Extradited to the United States. Arraigned in a federal courtroom in Dallas, the same city it turns out, where the door came down at 6:15 in the morning. You plead guilty. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Damage to protected computers. Conspiracy to commit money laundering. The Justice Department's numbers, when they read them into the record, are numbers you helped generate, but never quite let yourself add up while you were generating them. Over 2,500 ransomware attacks connected to the operation. More than $700 million demanded in total. $16 million in restitution, assigned to you personally. 13 years and 7 months. The judge does not raise her voice reading the sentence. She does not need to. The number does the work on its own, the way numbers have done the work through every level of this entire structure. The ransom demanded, the businesses affected, the cut you were promised, the years you are now going to serve. Numbers were always the actual language of everything you did. This is the first one that was never going to be negotiable. The laptop. Somewhere, right now, a 14-year-old is opening a laptop in a bedroom that looks nothing like a federal courtroom. He doesn't know the words script kiddie or Ransomware-as-a-Service or extradition. He doesn't know that the forum he's about to find has a version of every rank in this entire ladder waiting inside it, or that the distance between downloading a tool he doesn't understand and standing in a hallway with a rifle pointed at his chest is measured in years, not choices, a long accumulation of small steps that each felt, individually, like nothing at all. He just knows the screen is glowing and something on it looks interesting. He clicks anyway. He always does.